It's always a good spur of the moment thing. Mm. Kia ora koutou. Welcome back to School Briefs. Just a shorter one this week, Claire, because we thought people might be a bit sick of us after the
Oh,
budget special.
I know. It was like an avalanche between that and me being down at Spans and blogging every 5 minutes. It felt like it's like time to go into hiding for a little bit after that much.
Hey, did you have some really good feedback around your blogs that you wrote? Like, that was so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think particularly the one that landed well was the questions to the minister one, the one that just framed up the kinds of questions that I hope to be able to ask. And I think people, there's a real shared sense of frustration at the lack of listening that's going on, and I think people really relate to that. It's not that we're absolutely saying everything is terrible that's being rolled out. It's just like it doesn't need to be done in such a bloody rush. It doesn't need to be done to us. And actually, all of us in education know that anything simple and one size fits all is not going to have the outcome they hope. And I think we're already seeing evidence of that. So yeah, no, I did have some really lovely feedback, and I was a bit concerned. I tend to, if I go to an event, I tend to live blog, so I just type my notes straight into Substack, push them out. They're usually littered with typos. I go back for about 3 days afterwards and fish my typos out. That's good. At least it's not AI. But I've found it to be a really efficient way for me to process my learning and share my learning in real time, and also not double-handled. Because
Yeah.
so often I see people writing up notes and then they have to go and do it, and it becomes homework that they have to polish up if they're going to share back with anyone. So I suggest people give it a goddamn go if they haven't already. Just get straight into your Substack and start typing.
What I took away from the answer from the minister was that it is just the same prepared lines regardless of the audience. And I can understand why, if you were talking to like the general public at
Yeah,
a
yeah,
public
mum and
meeting,
dad.
why you might
Yeah,
keep things quite simple and high level, because it could be the first time people have kind of heard your intentions for education. But I mean, she was in a room full of educators,
yeah.
and if there was ever a place to have a much more kind of nuanced, debated conversation, you would think it'd be in front of
Oh,
those people, but it just
I
felt
don't
that
think.
kind of prepackaged, not really engaging
Yeah,
with the question.
and I also think she underestimates just how insulting it is to say that. I've seen it in another, I think it was a RNZ interview where she said that we've been in a malaise. And then this time she said, "Oh, we've just been drifting for years." And you've got this room full of exhausted educational leaders going, "Is this what drifting feels like?"
Mm. And actually, it hasn't been drifting. People have
No.
been focused on culturally responsive practice.
Oh,
They've been focusing on all of the co-requisites. I mean,
yeah.
this idea that she was the first person to invent the idea of professional development for teachers,
Yeah.
just it's just
Oh,
shocking.
but what I do want to do, and that we didn't talk about this beforehand, but can we use this as an opportunity? I started a bit of a conversation within our AEC chat yesterday, trying to recall all of the great initiatives that had got underway prior, up until 2023. So, we had the Aotearoa New Zealand Histories, we had Te Mataiaho, the 2023 version, we had Level 1 NCA, and a whole lot of other initiatives. And I'm really interested to capture all of the things we've lost, because I feel like I've got a bit of a post brewing, sort of, which is that death by a thousand cuts in terms of all of those initiatives. So, irregardless, if you're an ECE, primary, secondary, in the PLD space, can you drop in below this here podcast and throw in your suggestions, and like the things that you are really sorry that we had lost. So the kinds of initiatives, work that we were getting underway, stuff that suddenly seemed to be halted, that we think is a real gap in the environment. Because I'm really keen to try and capture a bit of a record. I think it's time to start keeping receipts.
Mm.
I think we need to be keeping a record of what we're losing, particularly when there's such a strong narrative around this malaise and drifting, and the fact that we're sort of sitting on our hands for, years beforehand, which is really frustrating and
It's a-
insulting.
yeah, that's a good chance to plug the AEC Facebook group.
Mm.
We've got a question there asking for people's comments. Hey, just before we finish on your question to the minister, the unsung hero of that entire thing was whoever set up that camera shot, because it was you with a microphone and then beautifully in the background, because the minister wasn't there in person, was
Yeah.
her head position. So,
Yeah.
camera person, well done, A plus.
Yeah. So that was a colleague up back that I think was feeling equally frustrated. I haven't actually shared that video particularly publicly because I'm not sure if it's kosher to do so. Um, but yeah. No, it was really interesting, and I will do my best to find a way to share it appropriately, the content of what was said, at the very least.
Hey, so obviously the budget this week.
Yeah.
Really proud of the work that AEC did. We launched some survey results talking about what people wanted or needed from the budget. Largely, it was around learning support that coincided really well with the launch of Still Beyond Capacity 1 year on from the learning support budget, which was launched at Parliament and was really well received. We had some great media over that.
Yeah.
We went into the budget day full of optimism that we were going to see some people-focused announcement, some more hands in classroom.
Yeah.
And, what were your takeaways from the budget?
I mean, I keep coming back to, I stole Jesse's line the other day when I was lucky enough to talk about this on breakfast, is that it was a keeping the lights on budget at best. And I think what I'm really worried about is, again, it's was like loose change spent in the education space, but what was being spent has been packaged up as this like great big investment in secondary education. And my frustration is, and I will say this and say this again, it is being spent on a whole lot of brand new curriculum creation, brand new assessment framework, brand new PLD that goes along with all of those things. None of them were needed to be built from the ground up. None of them. Like, everything needed to be improved. Absolutely. Let's co-construct, let's design and flesh out that curriculum over time. Let's strengthen NCA and deal with the issues around. I don't buy the narrative around gaming NCA. I think it's insulting, that phrasing. I think there are some very few examples of that. I think we've got a whole lot of examples of people using the flexibility of NCA to deliver localized curriculum and assessment opportunities. And it's insulting to say otherwise. But we did not need that, however many, hundreds of millions of dollars spent on rebuilding a system that no one asked her to tear down in the first place. And so I think it's a fiscally irresponsible budget, because I think if the money spent there could have been well and truly invested in learning support.
In our budget survey results, it was either the third or the fourth priority was curriculum support.
Mm,
When you actually dig into the nuance of what people are asking for, um, workbooks are kind of the furthest thing from what people are asking for. What they're wanting is time to be
yeah,
able to engage locally with other teachers to go about developing resources that fit their context. And
yeah.
it just feels like that type of idea is just so far removed from this kind of
Oh,
one
and
size
it's
fits
just
all.
like our neurodivergent, at risk learners, disengaged. Textbooks aren't going to be the answer to re engage them. I mean, it's, the absolute last thing that those young people need. So again, it's resourcing and prioritizing the sort of the middle performer, the maybe the capable kid that just gets on and does thing is going to be better resourced and better supported.
And do you know, my worry, they're typically people that do well in school
Anyway,
regardless,
yeah,
because the bit that we have to keep pushing back on this idea that we were in crisis before
yeah.
all of this happened.
Can
And
can I
actually
do
that
a shout out to Lisa Dara? She did a phenomenal piece. I can't remember where it was published. We shared it on the AEC Facebook page, but she did a fantastic article, opinion piece. I think it was a Herald one around Erica Stanford's got a story to tell. It's important that you don't listen. Just beautifully, and here's a university academic capturing that narrative around crisis, that is actually just simply not true.
Yeah. Hey, just wrapping up the budget stuff, given that we are in election year, what are the kind of like takeaways from the budget for education in light of the election? Like, what is the story they're trying to tell voters in the lead up to the election through the budget?
I think that they're just trying to say that it's their back to basics. It's a back to basics budget, and so there's no bells and whistles. It's investing. I mean, there are some infrastructure spends, which is fair enough. Our schools do need the investment. We got something like a 2% ops grant. Doesn't even hit inflation. It is a real back to basics budget for education.
Yep. Do you know, one of the things that I think we've kind of lost or we're at risk of losing is when we start to celebrate things like investment in school infrastructure,
Yeah,
as
which should
opposed
just
to
be.
just this kind of expectation
Yeah,
that we're going to kind of maintain the buildings that we've got and we're going to ensure that we've got enough schools.
yeah.
Yet in this kind of social media world, this is kind of seen as kind of announcements that should be celebrated.
Yeah,
And
and
we
that's I mean, and budgets are new money, like, that should already be taken care of. It should be our BAU spend,
Yeah,
you know?
and we run the risk of, seeing that as the announcement to be celebrated as opposed to what I think should just be a reasonable expectation that that's just what good governments do, and that
Yeah.
that is, like, the most apolitical thing where you don't even announce it because you just go and do it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I'm really looking forward to what our opposition parties start coming out with now. I feel like we're getting impatient. I know I'm getting impatient to hear about policies and positions from the Green Party and from Labour Party and even from Te Pāti Māori, like across the board. Really interested to start hearing some opposition policy announcements that are a bit more um, concrete. Like we've started to hear some principles and values, and really good to hear Ginny and Lawrence both starting to speak up more and more. But I think now is the time for some really concrete policies to start hitting the highway in the lead up to the elections.
Yep, couldn't agree more, and,
Mm.
fingers crossed when that does happen, there's, a beautiful synergy that exists between them all, and so there's a kind of real coherent narrative around what a kind of opposition's view of education should look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. What else
And
we
what was
talking about?
that? I don't know. What was our other topic? We were talking about the budget. We were
Have you
talking
There was,
about
school post.
the Bevan's post. So people haven't caught up on the Sunday read. It's absolutely hissing. That man should be an investigative reporter. I don't know. It's just it's incredible. Really, and this isn't about it was talking about school shorts, and this isn't about an attack on Melissa Chan Green whatsoever. This is talking about the questionable relationships between different parties and who is having influence and who is telling the story. I was really interested to find the connections with Bill English and Bill English's daughter, who's the CEO of Impact Lab. Like, wow, if you haven't read that Sunday read, I felt like I needed to start drawing a diagram on a whiteboard to understand that the web of influence around the narratives and the priorities and the resourcing. We really need to be challenging such a insular group of people and think tanks, basically absolutely erasing all of the work we've been doing and creating a brand new education system that isn't actually aligned with what people value within the education system. Yes, it's got great headlines that appeal to mum and dad voters because it all sounds very clean and tidy and back to basics and, one size fits all and a whole lot of solutions and some great spin. But actually, it's so far removed from what is great about education in Aotearoa and our localised curriculum and our very, bicultural context that we live in. But I just thought that was an incredible piece of writing from Bevan in terms of exposing the over-connectedness between school shorts and the minister's office quite clearly. She's been being provided with announcements before they are public. Is that okay? And if it was a one-off, you might think, okay, that happens sometimes, but it seems like it's become a really synergetic. What's the word I'm looking for? Synergetic? No,
Sorry,
goes back and forth.
I was gonna make up one of those corporate, things that yeah, but there were two things that kind of got reinforced, and I think neither of them are new. one is that it felt very similar to the way that the Waitangi Tribunal laid out how all of these people are connected.
Yes.
But that tended to be more in the kind of curriculum development space, whereas I think this
Yeah.
was more in the kind of communication strategy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
and just yeah, and particularly as school shorts is very much framed like if it had been advertised as being in partnership with the Ministry of Education, like that might have been a more honest positioning of, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like if they'd been overt and said, school shorts brought to you, partnership with Ministry of Education, it's a mechanism for us to communicate directly with parents. That feels like it would have been more honest if the communication has gone on in the way that it seems, that might have been a more honest approach. And again, this isn't a criticism of Melissa per se, like who, she has seen an opportunity and made the most of a communication and a connection that she had, and who can blame her? So that, this is by no means casting shade on her, but it does really put into question the minister's office and their behaviour and how they're willing to sort of,
mm,
utilize those platforms for their own purposes.
yeah.
Mm.
The other part though that I took away was just the small number of people pushing
Mm.
such a large direction, and they're incredibly
Yeah.
coordinated in the way that they go about this work.
Yeah.
And so on one hand you've got teachers, principals, the profession, curriculum associations, unions, all talking about either needing things slowed down, wanting to be more involved,
Yeah.
wanting a fresh direction. And then you've just got this really small pocket of connected people who have got roots in the kind of right
Oh,
wing ideology that are just pushing forward as quickly as they can
yeah.
with such a kind of narrow view on what good education looks like.
Yeah, and that there's that little bit in the article that talks about that quotes Pip Tinning, sort of from the New Zealand Association of Teachers of English, sort of going, "Hi, hi, yeah, just wondering what's going on over here." Here we have that entity who, up until 2023, would have been leading the writing and development of the New Zealand curriculum, sort of there with a bit of a flag off in the distance, trying to reconnect with people and have any involvement whatsoever. I'm sorry. I think it's just absolutely unforgivable the way that our experts, our local experts, have been pretty much shut out. I mean, good to see them back in the phase 5 curriculum development. They do seem to be back inside the tent. And so that's a good thing. But what a crying shame that those, right up to phase 4 seem to have been shut out pretty much completely.
Hey, shorter session today, Claire, because we had that big budget special,
Yeah.
and so let's wrap it up there. But just there, I'm keen that we come back and have a conversation about the Irish approach to curriculum development. They've actually got a completely separate curriculum centre,
Yeah.
got quite a diverse group of people involved, and they're kind of planning curriculum change about 6 years ahead of time, and so there's just this kind of slow roll of
Yeah, and
change.
it's just because it should be constantly being critiqued and updated and evolving. I was lucky enough to do, actually, it was through the Education Hub. I did a session with that Nina Hub organised, and it was with myself, Graham Aiken. We had
Was
one
that
of
the
the,
Scottish one?
it might have been. I don't know. It was really interesting. We all talked about what a good curriculum. We were all talking from our perspective. And it had the dude from University of Auckland. What's his name? It's got long hair. Can't remember his name. Really, really interesting dude. And what's her face? This is a really good podcast. What's his face and that dude? I,
Yeah,
I will link them later on. But
and I was gonna wrap it up as well.
yeah. I know. I said I'm the one. I'm the one that said it had to be quick, and I keep waffling on. But yes, let's come back to this conversation because I do think we're getting it wrong at the moment, and we need a different approach to. Let's reach out to someone from Ireland. Let's get them on. Let's have a
Let's do it.
special little webinar.
Cool. Hey, have a good week, Claire. Catch you
Yeah,
later.
and yeah, happy King's birthday, everyone.
Oh,
Have a
yeah.
great week.
Great.
Thanks, Charlie.